Yukon continues to deal with an outbreak of COVID-19 cases. Health officials use the term widespread infection in describing it. Today, the territory's premier summed it up this way.
We're still dealing with an outbreak of COVID-19 in the territory, and this time it has touched nearly all of our communities. We have seen more cases in the last 14 days than we have in the last 14 months.
The CBC's Steve Silva is in Whitehorse with more on today's briefing by the Premier and health officials. So, Steve, what's the latest?
Andrew, there weren't any new measures announced or anything that any further significant restrictions of any sort, but the Yukon government did go over the new number of cases, active cases in the territory. Now, for some perspective, on June 2nd, the total case count was 84. Yukon has gone through this pandemic relatively unscathed. 84 cases total. There were 82 recoveries, 2 deaths, and no known active cases. Now let's go to today. There are now 103 active cases in Yukon, known active cases. 5 people are in hospitals, either in Yukon or outside of the territory. And part of this outbreak that started this month has those cases are part of that outbreak that started this month, and that outbreak is now at 144 cases. The Yukon government has made it a point to point out that of those cases, 120 or so are unvaccinated, and that goes into its calls for people to actually go get their shots. Another thing that is of interest is the government has identified that it seems there are younger people getting infected versus it was, I guess, a little older previously. And the government says that a lot of these exposures have been happening at high school graduation events, house parties, and the like.
So what kind of impact is this having in the territory?
Well, what's unusual now is that the cases are spreading across the territory, whereas before, I mean, they are still relatively contained to Whitehorse, but the government says that there are cases in most Yukon communities, and that's led to a bunch of new restrictions being put in place by First Nations governments, and it's almost feeling like March 2020 all over again, with a lot of events being canceled and the like.
And so what's the latest on the territory's efforts to get residents vaccinated? Because as you mentioned, it seems as though the vast majority of people who are becoming infected are not, have not been vaccinated.
Well, the unusual thing is that Yukon is actually a leader in regards to COVID-19 vaccinations, not just in Canada, but in terms of like a jurisdiction kind of on the planet. Right now, in terms of first doses for adults, eligible adult Yukoners, Yukon is at 82%. As for the second dose, you need 2 doses and then 2 weeks to become fully vaccinated. Yukon is at 74%. So it's quite a ways. This is something that officials in other jurisdictions would salivate over, considering the lower uptake in other jurisdictions. And Yukon has also started the vaccination program for the younger age group. That's the 12 to 17 group. They started May 31st, and now some are actually about to get their second shot. So things are continuing.
All right, Steve, thank you. That is the CBC's Steve Silva live in Whitehorse.